liquid points and saturated vapor points, if you join, you will get a hill type shape. So that we have seen in the last class, and even you can see the 3D phase diagrams. And we have seen that in general, all the substances are of two types, one which contract on freezing and one which expand on freezing. And all substances usually contract on freezing, but water has a peculiar characteristic which expand on freezing. So this is one of the peculiar characteristic of water we have seen. That's why we have discussed that if you want to keep water in the freezer of a refrigerator, so you should not fill the complete bottle, otherwise it will break because it will expand during freezing. And other phase diagrams we have seen, mainly PT diagram. In the PT diagram, you will see all phase changes like a single lines. So you will see three lines. So one is sublimation line or deposition line, and another is melting line or freezing line. Another is evaporation line or vaporization line or condensation line. And all the three saturation lines intersect at one point, which is called triple point. And the triple point will have a fixed pressure and temperature for every substance. And okay, I forgot to tell in the last class, if you see those 3D phases, now I cannot just shift to that PowerPoint. We'll see whether I can do that. Yeah, if you see this 3D figure, many times what we think is triple point is a point. Actually, triple point is a line. It is a triple line. This is a triple line. You can see in both the figures, triple line. But if you see in this view, that is volume becomes a single point. At that time, this triple line, whole triple line will become single point. So on a PT diagram, we will see triple line as a single point, triple point. Okay, but actually speaking, in that on the triple line, pressure and temperature remain constant, but volume, specific volume change. Okay, so perpendicular to the board, or this perpendicular to this plane, so specific volume change, but pressure and temperature remain constant during the change of phase. Okay, triple point, so that's why we define with pressure and temperature. We won't talk about volume. Volume can have different values. Okay, that's what you can observe from here. And also, we have seen that the other important characteristic of water is, as pressure increase, all saturation lines will have positive slope, except for water, the melting line will be having negative slope characteristic. So as pressure increase, saturation temperature decrease for water. And I told you it is because of that skiing is possible, skiing play or game is possible on the ice. Okay, those things we have discussed, and also we have seen an interesting thing that we can evaporate a substance any number of times without ever condensing it. Why? Because beyond critical temperature, you cannot identify in which phase it is, whether it is water liquid phase or vapor phase. You cannot identify between them. So that is interesting thing. So we have seen that around critical point, if you draw a imaginary rectangle, and if you take that as a cycle, right, every time when it crosses the vaporization line, there will be evaporation, but there won't be any phase change in the remaining processes of the cycle. So for every cycle, there will be evaporation without condensation. So that is some interesting thing. Okay, these things we have discussed in the last class. So we'll see the objectives of the today's class. We demonstrated the procedures for determining thermodynamic properties of fluid substances from tables of property data. Describe the hypothetical substance, ideal gas, and the ideal gas equation of state. Apply the ideal gas equation of state in the solution of typical problems. Introduce the compressibility factor, which accounts for the deviation of real gases from ideal gas behavior, and present some of the best known equations of state. Okay, these are the objectives of today's class. Okay, so this is a bit important for problem solving. For till the end of the semester, we are going to use these property tables whenever there is a two-phase substances are there as a working substance. Okay, property tables. Suppose if you have ideal gas, for ideal gas, there is no problem because PV and T are related. If you know two properties, third property can be obtained. And all the others, you know the equations for enthalpy, internal energy, entropy, and all, we can easily calculate. But other substances will not have such clear equations. So when you don't have those equations, it is very difficult to calculate the other properties. But we can measure, right? So by at every state of a substance, I can measure all the properties. And those can be drawn in graphs or they can be put into tables. So these are property tables. Whenever I have complex equations, for most substances, the relationships among thermodynamic properties are too complex to be expressed by simple equations. Therefore, properties are frequently presented in the form of tables or sometimes graphs. But as I told in the last class, graphs will not give accurate values, but tables will give better values. And some thermodynamic properties can be measured easily, but others cannot be and are calculated by using the relations between them and measurable properties. And the results of these measurements and calculations are presented in tables in a convenient format. Okay, that we will see. Again, we will discuss after some time. Okay. Okay, this is a repetition of what you know the BME. And the internal energy we have already discussed. So there is another property, enthalpy. Enthalpy is defined as which is a property as U plus PV. Okay, it is has some benefit in calculations when you deal with steady flow processes, because whenever some mass enters the system and leaves the system, so energy also flows into the system and leaves the system, and its internal energy is U1, and this is what is called as flow work. So some flow work also enters into the system because it has to push the substance inside and has to go, right? That is what is called as flow work. In the same way, something pushes it out to go out. So that is what is called flow work. So the energy going in is U1 and P1 V1, which is flow work. And this total is called the enthalpy of the system. And here also enthalpy leaving the system, enthalpy entering into the system. So U plus PV has some interesting use in calculations. That's why we define enthalpy as U plus PV. And the saturated liquid and vapor states. Okay, you have a hill-like thing we have seen. On the left side of the hill, we have saturated line represents saturated liquid line. On the right side, we have saturated vapor line. And the properties on the saturated liquid, they are called VF, UF, HF, SF. Like that, F is given as the suffix, means fluid or actually liquid. And if you take on the saturated vapor line, we give suffix G. So VG, UG, HG, SG, like that. So the tabulations of saturated liquid properties and vapor properties are given in this way. It is only a part of it. I think you can see the complete table, which are given in your appendix. It will be given like this. So saturated water temperature table. So for a given temperature, we have saturation pressure given in the second column. And on the saturated liquid line, we have specific volume VF, internal energy UF, enthalpy HF, and entropy SF. On the saturated vapor line, the specific volume is VZ, and internal energy is UZ, enthalpy is HG, and entropy is SG. Like that, these are tabulated. And here, VFG is given. VFG is difference between VZ and UFG is difference between UZ and UF, and HFG is difference between HG and HF. Means the difference of enthalpy between the saturation vapor and saturated liquid. Okay, and this HFG is nothing but the latent heat of that particular substance. Okay, so initially when it is liquid, the enthalpy is this much, And when it is evaporated, so because it takes the latent heat inside, its enthalpy increase and it becomes Hg. So Hg minus Hf gives Hfg, which is latent heat. Similarly, Sf and Sg, Sfg is Sg minus Sf. Actually, VFG also is needed. It is not tabulated, but whenever VFG is needed, I have to calculate Vg minus Vf. So like that, we have for a given temperature, I can get the properties of the fluid on the saturated vapor line and on the saturated liquid line and its saturation pressure. Okay, these are tabulated. These are measured and they are tabulated. And sometimes you need properties at a given temperature. Then we will choose this. If it can be 45 degrees, 100 degrees, 145 degrees, like that. You can have continuous increase. So 200 up to 373.95. So up to 373.95, it is given. Okay, temperatures, because later critical temperature and other things will come. Okay, and suppose if temperature is given is okay, you will be given pressure. So pressure at 0.1 bar or 0.5 bar or 500 kilopascals, like that, you will be given pressure and you want to get the properties at that pressure. So in that way, you can see from here itself at a particular pressure, right? So at these are kilopascals. So at 30 kilopascals, if you want to know the properties, but I don't have 30 round figure here. I have 31. So from 25 and 31, I have to take these values and I have to interpolate, which takes a lot of time. So instead of that, if I have separate tables for pressure also, so based on the pressure, you can see after temperature tables, saturated water pressure table is there. So first column will be pressure, which are in round figures. So if I want at 50 kilopascals, I can straight away see here, and all the other values, saturation temperature and Vf, Vg, UF, UG, UFG, HF, HFG, all these things you can get from the tables. This is for saturated water and saturated steam. Okay, so we'll go to again back to the PowerPoint. Any doubts? Okay, part of that table is given here. So temperature basic table and corresponding saturation pressure and Vf and Vg are given here. So here the difference Vfg is between Vg minus Vf. Okay? The enthalpy of vaporization, as I told, which is called as latent heat of vaporization, that is HFG. The amount of energy needed to vaporize a unit mass of saturated liquid at a given temperature or pressure. It represents the amount of energy needed to vaporize a unit mass of saturated liquid at a given temperature or pressure. It decreases as the temperature or pressure increases and becomes zero at the critical point. So I told you the amount of heat needed, that is the horizontal distance between saturated liquid line and saturated vapor line. So as temperature increase, so the line goes up and up. And so the distance between the two lines gets reduced, means the latent heat gets reduced. And at critical point, the length of horizontal line becomes zero. And so the latent heat is zero. Because there is nothing like evaporation. We cannot distinguish between saturated liquid and saturated vapor. So the latent heat is zero when you reach the critical point. So here you can see, right? Okay, so this is saturated liquid line. This is saturated vapor line. So on this line, we have Vf, Uf, Hf, and Sf. On this line, you have UZ, Vg, Hg, and Sg. And this distance between this is a change of phase. So here, if it is Hg and this is Hf, the Hg minus Hf, this becomes latent heat. And as the temperature increases, this horizontal line goes up and up. And so the distance between distance of the horizontal line reduces. And at this point, critical point, the latent heat becomes zero. So this is how you can see. So this is the TV diagram. This is PV diagram. And so on a PV diagram, constant pressure line goes like this, and on a PV diagram, the constant temperature line or isothermal line goes like this. And during vaporization process, a substance exists as part liquid and vapor. Hence, it is a mixture of saturated liquid and saturated vapor. Okay, that is between in this region, which is called as wet region or a mixture of water and vapor region. So if you take any point here, there is some water and some vapor together. It is a mixture. It is called as wet vapor or wet steam, like that. Okay, if so here it is a mixture of saturated liquid and saturated vapor. So some of the properties of saturated liquid will be there, and some of the properties of saturated vapor also will be there in between. So the properties of the saturated liquid are the same, whether it exists alone or in the mixture. So though it is in the mixture, some saturated liquid and saturated vapor, their properties are preserved. During vaporization process, only the amount of saturated liquid changes, not its properties. So as it goes from this point to this point, so saturated liquid reduce, saturated vapor increase, but properties of both of them will be preserved. The amount of mass of each phase is usually not known. Therefore, it is often more convenient to imagine that the two phases are mixed very well, forming a homogeneous appearance. Then the properties of this mixture will simply be the average properties of the saturated liquid vapor mixture under consideration. It is not average actually, it is weighted average. It is weighted average. So here we will see how it is used. Okay, before going to that, we have defined in the last class what is called as quality. Quality of steam. So how much vapor is present in the mixture. So that is what is called as quality. The ratio of the mass of vapor to the total mass of the mixture. So quality is between 0 and 1. 0 for saturated liquid and 1 for saturated vapor. Means the X is 0 on this line, and gradually it increase, and it comes to 1 here. So the properties of the saturated liquid are the same whether it is exists alone or mixture with saturated vapor that we have discussed in the last slide. So X is equal to mass of vapor by mass total. So mass total is equal to mass of liquid plus mass of vapor, means MF plus Mg. Okay, here we have saturated liquid and vapor with specific volumes Vf and Vg, and for the mixture it is weighted average. So how to calculate the specific volume for the mixture? So that's what we are going to discuss. So the total volume is volume of the fluid plus volume of the gas, and the total volume V also is equal to the total mass into specific volume of the mixture, or M total into V average. This V average we are interested to find. This is equal to MF Vf. This is total volume Vf is equal to MF small v. This is small v, and Mg Vg. This is small vg. So this is mass of total mass of volume of fluid. This is total volume of gas, and the total mixture volume is V. So V is equal to MF Vf plus Mg Vg. And we know that mass of fluid is equal to total mass minus gas mass. So MT V average is equal to, if you substitute MF is equal to MT minus Mg here, so we are going to get this. So this becomes V average, or the mixture specific volume is equal to 1 minus X into Vf plus XVZ. Okay, so it is like because 0 is X is 0 here, 1 here, and at some point here, if this is X, this will be 1 minus X. So 1 minus X into Vf and X into Vz gives the specific volume at this point. Okay, so that's what. If I know the dryness fraction, how much dryness fraction, I can find out at which point it is. So I can find out the specific volume at that particular intermediate point using this relation. If X is known, Vf and Vz can be obtained from the tables. So at a particular pressure and the specific dryness fraction, if you are asked to find out what is the dryness fraction of the mixture, so you go to the tables, pressure tables. At that pressure, you just go through the table row and find out what is Vf and Vz. Because X is given, you can substitute X here, Vf, Vg from the tables. I can find out what is Vfg, calculate what is Vfg. Okay, so here this can be written in another way. So Here, if you expand this, Vf minus xVf plus xVg. So x, if you take common, x into Vg minus Vf, which is xVfg. Okay. So we can write this way. Vf is equal to V average is equal to Vf plus xVfg. In the same way, you can repeat for internal energy, enthalpy, entropy, like that. So Y average, Y is a general one. It can be V, U, or H. Y average is equal to Yf plus xYfg. Okay, this is important relation. Either this you can use or I can use this. One of these two I can use. If I want to find out the mixture properties, knowing the fluid properties and gas properties and dryness fraction. Okay, so this is particularly important. We are going to use these relations throughout the textbook or throughout the semester, right? Any doubt in this? At any given pressure and temperature, I can find out Vf, Vg, Uf, Ug, Hf, Hg, Sf, Sg from the steam tables. And in addition, because one property will not give you all the values. One property is temperature given, and another property, suppose you are given dryness fraction x. So I can calculate U, V, and H using this particular relation. Y average equal to Yf plus xYfg. Okay, knowing x, I can find out this. And okay, suppose in another way, suppose you are given temperature and enthalpy of the mixture, and you have to find out internal energy and specific volume. So what we have to do at that time? So because I know temperature, again, I find out all Vf, Vg, Uf, Ug, Hf, Hg, and Sf and Sg. And because I know enthalpy means this relation. I use this relation. I know this mixture enthalpy and HF and HFG from the tables. So I can find out what is dryness fraction. First, you calculate dryness fraction. Once you calculate dryness fraction, then I can find out using these relations the unknown values of internal energy and then specific volume of the mixture. Okay, so that is the way. If you are given a property, find out dryness fraction. If you are given dryness fraction, find out the other properties. So that way you have to solve the problems. Any doubts? Otherwise, I feel you people are sleeping because it's 8 to 9 also. Okay, nice. At least if one person responds, I can be happy. Okay. So this water, always the V value of a saturated liquid vapor mixture lies between Vf and Vc, because here it is Vf and this is Vc. At any point here in between will lie, the value lies between these two. Vf is less than V, less than V. Okay, I think this is okay. Next, okay, within this region, I can find out the properties from the tables. Suppose my state is in this superheated region. If it is in the superheated region, how to find out the properties? Okay, are they tabulated or how to see? So compared to saturated vapor, superheated vapor is characterized by lower pressure, because as you know, any substance behaves like a perfect gas when the pressures are very low and temperatures are very high. So at high temperatures and low pressures, any gas behaves like a perfect gas. So as it is getting heated, it becomes more and more superheated. So the temperature will be more than saturation temperature and pressure will be less than saturation pressure to behave it to be a superheated vapor or a perfect gas. So it will have lower pressure less than P saturated and higher temperatures greater than T saturated and higher specific volumes V greater than Vz, U greater than Uz, H greater than Hg, because we have seen that from here to here, gradually Vf, V increase, U increase, H increase. So here also, if you go further up, there will be further increase in the specific volume, internal energy, and enthalpy. In the region to the right of the saturated vapor line and at temperatures above the critical temperature, a substance exists as superheated vapor. So on the right side and also above the critical temperature, if I draw a horizontal line here above the critical temperature, it is always considered to be superheated vapor. In this region, temperature and pressure are independent properties. So here in this region, temperature or pressure are dependent in this. So it is not enough if you are given one temperature or pressure. So in addition to that, you should be given another property, either specific volume or internal energy or enthalpy or entropy or dryness fraction. Right? But on the left side of the curve or the right side of the curve, pressure and temperature are independent properties. So if you know both pressure and temperature, all other can be calculated. Okay, they are independent properties. Okay, that's what it's given here. So here also they are given in tables. Superheated tables will be there. Okay, so how the tables will be, just again we will see. So these are saturated tables. Again, this is pressure based, and after that, this is pressure table. And here superheated water tables is there. Yeah, I told you pressure and temperature are independent. So you will be given temperature and pressure to calculate all the other properties. So here you can see for different pressures, I have different tables and the temperature varying, and I will have specific volume, internal energy, enthalpy, and entropy. So you will be given pressure and temperature. So I have to see the table corresponding to that pressure. Here it is 0.01 megapascal, 0.05 megapascal, 0.1 megapascal, 0.2 megapascal, like that, 0.6, 0.8, like that. I have different pressures are there. First, you choose which pressure tallies with this value. Okay, your pressure, if it is suppose 2 megapascal, I have to choose this particular table. And you will be given the temperature also because they are independent. So if temperature is given, suppose 500, so in this table, in this particular table, I have to choose 500 and go along the row, and I can find out specific volume, internal energy, enthalpy, and entropy. See, V, U, H, S. So all these four properties can be obtained. So these are superheated tables. And in another way, sometimes you will be given, suppose, pressure and enthalpy. If you are given pressure and enthalpy, and you have to get all the other properties. How to do that? I am not given temperature. So what I have to do is, you choose that particular pressure table, and the enthalpy is there. Suppose you are given enthalpy as 3500. So 3500, I have to see where it is. It is not there, but it is between these two, 3468.3, 3690.7. If this is at temperature 500, so at 500 I know, at 600 I know, so it is between 500 and 600. So I have to interpolate. So if at 500, 3468 is there, at 600, 3690 is there, and what will be the value of temperature at 3500? So it is like a straight line fit, y2 minus y1 is equal to y minus y1 is equal to y2 minus y1 by x2 minus x1 into x minus x1. That straight line equation you can use. So, and you can find out what is the unknown temperature. So find out that temperature, and at that temperature you have to interpolate for entropy, and because it is suppose 560 degrees centigrade you got. Okay, at 500 this is the entropy, at 600 this is the entropy, then why it is the entropy at 560? So again you have to interpolate. Like that we have to do for the calculations. Any doubt? So you will have superheated tables and the saturated water tables. Saturated water tables, temperature based and pressure based. So these are the tables normally you need. So not only for water, because you have steam power plant problems, I have to use these water tables. Suppose I have a refrigerant or air conditioning plant. then I will have the working substance which is refrigerant, as I told, R11, R22, R134A, like that I have different things. So for those things also, I will have tables. So we'll see if there are any tables like that. So these are superheated tables for different types of turbines. So these are curves. Okay, you can see here R134A. So this is again saturated R134A table, again temperature based. Okay, similar way, only thing values will be different. So this is temperature based, and again there will be pressure based table, and then there will be superheated R134A tables. Like that, you will have tables for water and steam, and then there will be for all many refrigerators which are normally are used, you will have tables. So if you have problems, you have to use these particular tables. Okay, only thing from this you have to know that for superheated gases, vapor, the pressure will be less than saturated pressure, temperatures will be above saturated temperature, and specific volume, internal energy, enthalpy, and entropy will be more than the values on the saturated vapor. Okay, similarly on the left side, we have compressed liquid. So normally we don't use tables for compressed liquid because during liquid on the left side, the variation of properties are not much. The compressed liquid properties depend on temperature much more strongly than they do on pressure. As I told, on the left side also, pressure and temperature are independent properties, but the dependency on temperature is more than on the pressure. So y, suppose if I want y at this point, so this is approximately equal to yf at temperature. So this, suppose if I get that yf at this point, so whatever be the pressure, so it doesn't matter, right? So same value I can use. If I know the temperature, find out yf and forget about the pressure dependence. Okay, the value as the pressure change, the value of the property will not change much. The fluid property will be same, independent of the pressure. That's why if I want to find out at a given pressure and temperature, what is the value of that y means v, u, or h. Okay, so find out that yf at that particular temperature. Again, go to the saturated tables, find out fluid property, and that property itself you can straight away substitute. But for h, there is a more accurate relation. H is equal to hf at the saturation temperature plus vf at the saturation temperature into T minus P saturation temperature. This is actually VDP. Okay, this is VDP. Okay, V into dP. So you are given at a given pressure and temperature, you are asked to find out what is the enthalpy. Okay, so at that temperature, you find out what is HF. Okay, and VF. So you substitute these values. P is the given pressure and the saturation pressure corresponding to that particular temperature. So from the tables, you have to get PSAT, VF, and HF, right? And I have to calculate enthalpy of that compressible liquid. And again, if you see, as compressed liquid is characterized by its saturation pressure will be greater than, if the pressure is greater than saturation pressure, temperature will be less than saturation temperature, and all specific volume, internal energy, and the enthalpy will be less than the saturated vapor properties. Here on the superheated side, they are more, and on the compressed liquid side, they will be less than the saturated fluid properties. Okay, this is the way we have to calculate the values of the properties of the given substance. Okay, so given P and T, V, U, and H at that T you can find out, and T sat also you can find out. Then you can use this particular relation. Okay, that's what it is explained. Okay, these are the things, these tables, which we have already seen. Saturated water temperature table, saturated R134A temperature table. Okay, and normally there will be some reference state and reference values. The values of U, H, S cannot be measured directly, and they are calculated from the measurable properties using the relations between properties. So all are differential relations. du is equal to dh is equal, like change in enthalpy, change in internal energy, like that you can find out. If it is going from one state to another state, you can find out the change. But what is the reference value? Okay, change I can find out. If I want to know the absolute value, I should have some reference value. Okay. So however, those relations give the change in properties, not the values of properties at specified states. Therefore, we need to choose a convenient reference state and assign a value of 0 for a convenient property or properties at that state. Okay, so the reference states depends on the substance and also depends on the person he is using. Okay, usually the reference state for water is taken to be triple point of water, 0.01 degrees centigrade. And for R134A, it is minus 40 degrees centigrade in tables. Okay, and so based on this, all the values are tabulated. If 0.01 degree centigrade, all reference values, specific volume, internal energy, enthalpy, entropy are taken to be zeros. And compared to that, what is the value at different temperatures and pressures they have calculated. Okay, but say suppose R134A, the reference is taken minus 40 degrees centigrade in the tables for this particular book. And for some other book, they may take minus 80 degrees centigrade, they may take 0 degrees centigrade as a reference state. Then these values will be entirely different. In one book, the table values will be different, another book, the table values will be different. But suppose if you take, you purchase some refrigeration tables or steam tables from outside, and if you want to use them, and you have compared with textbook values, all are different and no values match, and you will be panicked. Okay, there is nothing to be panicked, because we are interested always to find out the change of properties. When you calculate the change of properties, whatever table you use, the values will be same. See, however, in thermodynamics, we are concerned with the changes in properties, and the reference state chosen is of no consequence in calculations. Because sometimes different tables list different values of some properties at the same state as a result of using a different reference state. Okay, there is nothing to be worried about it. And based on the reference state, sometimes some properties may have negative values as a result of the reference state chosen. Okay, nothing to be panic. Any tables you can use, but the values, the final answers will be same, whatever table we use. Okay, this is about the pure substance and how to find out the properties. Up to this, are there any doubts or difficulties? Because this is very important. You go through the problems that are solved in the textbook, and also once you understand the worked out examples, then you can try to solve the exercise problems also. All these thermal subjects, unless you practice problems, right, you can never gain confidence. Your concepts will, you may think that, okay, I understood all subject and all, because normally exams will be completely problematic. And though you know the concepts, you are bound to make mistakes because of the substitution, because of the units, because of the values that you have to take from the tables. Unless you are used to it and familiar with it, you are bound to make mistakes and lose marks. Okay, then we talk about what is called as ideal gas equation of state. So this we know. Actually, I am very much interested to know one thing. So how do you get the equation of state for an ideal gas? We know that it is PV equal to RT, RT equal to RT by V. It is given here, right? And we know the people, I see from the books that this is obtained from the gas laws. Okay, these gas laws, so we know that one is the Boyle's law, which says that PV is constant at a constant temperature. That is, for an isothermal process, the product of pressure and specific volume remain constant. PV equal to constant for an isothermal process. Then we have the Charles law, which says V is proportional to T for an isobaric process, or V by T is equal to constant for an isobaric process. Okay, and so it will be given in the books that from these two laws, we can say PV is equal to RT. I have a small doubt how this is obtained, because one equation is valid for isothermal process and one equation is valid for isobaric process. And now I say PV is equal to RT or PV is proportional to T for any process. How can I be sure about that? Can anybody just answer me? Because we are using from the schooling also this equation of state and all. Can anybody respond? How we get PV equal to RT, ideal gas equation of state, which is true for any process, from the Boyle's law, which is true for only isothermal processes, and from the Charles law, which is valid only for isobaric process. How do you get this equation of state? Okay, you think of it and respond at least in the next class. Okay, then this R is equal to equation of the characteristic gas constant, and which is a ratio of universal gas constant and molecular weight of the particular substance. So R is R depends on the substance that we use, and Ru, which is universal gas constant, the value is given in different units. Okay, so again you have to be careful in what units I have to substitute. So this decimal where you have to put and all. And these characteristic gas constants are given for different substances, say helium, argon, and nitrogen. And so total mass is equal to molar mass, that is molecular weight into mole number. And so in terms of universal gas constant, PV is equal to either I can write MRT or an RUT. So Ru is universal gas constant. So N is the number of moles. Okay, you can use either one of these. So because the total volume is equal to the number of moles into molar volume, or PV bar is equal to R bar T. And for two different states, they are compared like this. T1 V1 by T1 is equal to P2 V2 by T2. But we know that real gases behave as an ideal gas only at low densities, that is low pressure and high temperature. That is, these molecules must be away from each other, widely separated. Then it behaves like a real gas, the perfect gas or ideal gas. Okay, one more thing I want to ask. Sometimes we say ideal gas and sometimes perfect gas. Are the real gas and perfect gas are same or different? Can anybody respond? Ideal gas and perfect gas. Ideal gas and perfect gas. Are they same or different? Are they synonymous? It's not that clear. Not same, okay. And then, okay, different, very good. But can you tell what is the difference? Anybody? So people have responded that they are different and not the same. Okay, I'm not asking about real gases. Okay, real gases are different, ideal gases are different, and perfect gas. So this ideal gas and perfect gas, are they synonymous? Are different? Okay, perfect gas is a special case of ideal gas. Okay, they are different. Okay, but how they are different? That's what I'm asking. Okay, Perfect gases are ideal gases, but perfect gas is a special case of ideal gas. Okay, both satisfy equation of state. There is no doubt about it. But in addition to that, based on the specific heats, okay, if specific heats, Cp and Cv, okay, if they are functions of temperature only, then it is semi-perfect gas. For real gases, you have to measure the specific heat and pressure and Cp and Cv separately. But for semi-perfect gases, it is an ideal gas with a additional restriction that Cp and Cv are functions of temperature only. And perfect gas is still special case where Cp and Cv are constants. If Cp and Cv are constant, in addition to ideal gas condition of satisfying the equation of state, we call it as perfect gas. Okay, so that is the difference. Semi-perfect gas, perfect gas, ideal gas, real gas, right? Okay, is water vapor an ideal gas? So we, when it is saturated, near to saturated, it is not an ideal gas. If it is heated very much, or if pressure is reduced very much, then it becomes an ideal gas. At pressures below 10 kilopascals, water vapor can be treated as an ideal gas, regardless of its temperature, with negligible error less than 0.1%. At high pressures, the ideal gas assumption is unacceptable errors. High pressures, it will not work, we know it, particularly the vicinity of the critical point and the saturated vapor line. So in air conditioning applications, the water vapor in the air can be treated as an ideal gas. When you do the air conditioning problems later in the final year, so then we consider the water vapor as an ideal gas. Why? Okay, you just think about it and answer it later. In steam power plant applications, however, the pressures involved are usually very high. Therefore, ideal gas relation should not be used. In power plant problems, steam power plant problems, the pressures are very high. In the we will have pump boiler, right? In the pump, the pressures are raised to very high pressures, so it can never behave. It will never behave as an ideal gas. Okay, so in these steam power plant problems. So the percentage of error, right? The table value minus V ideal by V table into 100. Okay, so that is this error by V of the V table value into 100. This is called what is called as error. So you can see the error when it is this side, low pressure side. Okay, these are pressures, right? 0.8 kilopascal, 10 kilopascal, 100 kilopascal, 1 megapascal, like that. These are pressures. So at low pressures, they behave like ideal gas, and the error in calculation is negligible. You can see 0, 0, 0 here. And the error starts from 1 megapascal, right? So here, a little bit of error, and the error increase as you go towards the critical temperature or critical pressure, 20 megapascal. You can see 56% error. And here, 271 and 37%, 17% like that. These are the errors. So at low pressures, the error is very small, but at high pressures, the error is very high. So there is another called as compressibility factor, which measures the deviation from the ideal gas behavior. Okay, a little bit of real gas things we will see in the next class. We will stop here. There are a few more things left in this particular slideshow. So we will do it in the next class because it's 8:55. So I will stop here. Any doubts till whatever it is covered? Okay, we'll see about some nice personalities. Okay, there is a person, we are talking about this. He applied for 30 different jobs and was rejected by all the people. And then he says, I went for a job with the police, and they said, you are no good. Then he was interviewed actually. He told that interviewer, I even went to KFC when it came to my city. 24 people went for the KFC job and 23 were accepted, and I was the only guy got rejected. Okay, he is none other than this Jack Ma. He is the founder of Alibaba Group, Chinese multinational technology company and multimillionaire, who is the inspiration to crores of people. And another interesting personality we'll see. He was born in a poor family in 1890. In 1905, he worked as a conductor at 15 years of age. In 1906, he worked as a wagon driver in US Army. In 1907, he worked as a blacksmith's helper. Then he got a job cleaning out the ash pans of trains from Northern Alabama Railroad. Then he became a fireman in a steam engine. He worked the job for nearly 3 years until he was fired for insubordination after he got sick. So because he was sick, he could not attend for the job for a few days and he was fired. He then found work as a fireman on the Illinois Central Railroad and lost his job at Illinois after brawling with a colleague. So he's a bit more emotional and like that. So he always has some problems with other people. And after a while, he studied law and began to practice law in Little Rock, which he did for 3 years, earning enough in fees for his family to move with him. His legal career ended after a courtroom brawl. Again, there is a fight in the courtroom, and with his own client, destroyed his reputation. And he had encountered repeated failures, largely through bullheadedness, a lack of self-control, impatience, and a self-righteous lack of diplomacy. Then he was forced to move back in with his mother in Henryville and went to work as a laborer on the Pennsylvania Railroad. In 1916, okay, he was born in 1890, so 26. The family moved to another place where he got a job selling life insurance for the Prudential Life Insurance Company. There he was eventually fired for insubordination again. In 1918, he moved to another place and got a sales job with Mutual Benefit Life of New Jersey. And around 1922, that is 32 years, he took a job as secretary at the Chamber of Commerce in Columbus, in Indiana. He admitted that he was not very good at the job and resigned after less than a year. In 1923, he established a company manufacturing acetylene lamps. The venture failed after Delco introduced an electric lamp that it sold on credit. So 33 years. So you can see how many failures he has faced. He moved to Winchester, Kentucky to work as a salesman for the Michelin Tire Company. He lost his job in 1924, 34 years, when Michelin closed in New Jersey manufacturing plant. In 1924, by chance, he met the general manager of Standard Oil of Kentucky, who asked him to run a service station in Nicholasville. In 1930, the station closed as a result of a Great Depression. So now he's 40 years. In 1930, the Shell Oil Company offered Sanders a service station in North Corby, Kentucky, rent-free, in return of paying the company percentage of sales. Sanders began to serve chicken dishes and other meals such as country ham and steaks. Initially, he served the customers in his adjacent living quarters before opening a restaurant. It was during this period that Sanders was involved in a shootout in Matt Stewart, a local competitor, over the repainting of a sign directing traffic to his station. And Stewart was killed, a Shell employee who was with Sanders and was convicted of murder, eliminating Sanders' competition. Sanders was commissioned as a Kentucky colonel in 1935 by Kentucky Governor Ruby Ralph. His local popularity grew, and in 1939, food critic Dunk. So he has established, I think you understood, Sanders is written here. So this is Colonel Sanders. And he became a millionaire at after 50 years of his age. And you can see his life, how many years and how many times he faced a problem in his life. But still, success can be at any time of our age. Okay, thank you very much. It is exactly 9 o'clock, and hope I think we will see in tomorrow's class, 11:30 to 12:30. Anything else you want to ask?